So the weather here in central Ohio has been pretty wet lately, and it seems like we can't get anything done without a threat of rain or getting wet. Unless, of course, we're in the shop. Vicki and Allison have been plenty busy trying to get merch shipped out for this next giveaway. From now until the end of May, you've got an opportunity to win a brand new ATM carburetor and to come hang out here at the shop with us. Hopefully, whoever wins gets to come out when it's not raining. That is, unless you're good at cleaning out gutters. I could always use a little help with that.
We got a big ladder.
I thought you said you were afraid of heights.
It's not that high. It's not gonna hurt your fall.
He's already halfway there, naturally.
The ladder I use around here is green and self-propelled. However, it's probably not OSHA approved. You never know, when you guys come out to visit, we may be digging drain tile. Especially since my neighbor let me know that the water off my roof is starting to flood his fire pit next door and flood his barn.
Hey man, we need some drain tile. You know a guy?
Obviously, with all this rain, we've been cooped up in the shop trying to work on projects indoors. And you know it's bad when buckwheat starts coming around just to find a dry spot to hang out for a little while. Eventually, the sun comes out and it dries the roads up just enough for us to haul merch down to the post office. And Vicki and Allison definitely enjoy using the El Camino, which is easier to load and unload than a pickup truck or the Suburban. Although the weather on Wednesday was absolutely gorgeous, I had a really dark cloud following me around. And by Thursday, it had finally caught up with me. That morning, we started off changing tires on the back of Billy's Nova out in the shop. Tanner was busy working on that. On my itinerary for the day was a trip down to Mark's to pick up some parts, and then I plan on heading up to Bob's and hopefully fire up Jimmy Dale's 434 on the dyno and get started making dyno pulls on it this afternoon. When I pulled in down at Mark's, there were a couple of pretty hot topics being discussed down there, the first of which is Thing One's new haircut. I snuck in on you.
You did. Where you been?
Well, I've been busy.
I see that.
I see your protege there got his hair cut.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, his ears look a little lower.
Yeah, they are.
I need some spark plugs, I need some oil filters, and a couple cases of oil. This is for Jimmy Dale's engine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so put this all on his tab.
We can do that.
The other hot topic was the pace car versus the Malibu.
I seen a Malibu put a whooping on a Mustang.
You saw that?
I sure
I
did.
think everybody saw
I
that.
did.
What do you think of that? Old small block Chevy strapping it on that Mustang.
Billy was probably scratching his head, wasn't he?
Did they make a Malibu pace car?
No.
Well, that's what I didn't think. I didn't think they did. Pace car, what I always thought of was in the front of the pack.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think it wasn't in the front of the pack.
It was definitely not in
No,
the front of
it
the
wasn't.
pack.
I just wondered if they made a Malibu pace car, though.
No. But the Malibu paced the pace car.
It did, yeah.
Once Mark got me hooked up with the oil, filters, and spark plugs I needed, it was time for me to turn and burn north up to the machine shop. Bob already has Jimmy's engine mounted on the dyno. He's already got the headers on, the water pump on, and the block full of water. But in the meantime, he's working on my 440 and Billy's small block for his C10. When we made the deal with Bob for him to stay at the machine shop and work specifically for us, we weren't really sure if we could keep Bob that busy. But based on how our season has started so far, I don't think that is going to be a problem. And thankfully, the service side has been staying plenty busy for Nick. When I pulled in up at Bob's, he was busy checking piston to valve clearance on my 440 for the Monte Carlo. We were planning on moving the cam timing around on the dyno to see if we could make some more power, but it turns out that's not going to be possible. Hey, I brought you goodies.
I see that. More parts.
Yeah, spark plugs, filters, oil. So I see you got Jimmy Dale's engine on the dyno in there. It's just about ready to go.
Yeah.
This is my 440 for the Monte Carlo, and some people may pick up on that we switched out the timing belt. I had a Jessel timing belt on this, and we went ahead and put a cloys cover and a timing chain in it because when Bob checked the piston to valve clearance, it had to pretty much go where it had to go. And the reason we had the timing belt on there was so that we could move the timing back and forth on the dyno. But when you went to check piston to valve, there was no leeway. That's where it's got to go, and that's the only place it's going to live. And since there was no piston to valve clearance to move it back and forth, move the cam timing back and forth, we decided just to go ahead and put a cover on it, put a chain on it, because this is going to be a street car anyway. So there it is. And I did bring you the oil pan. So we've got the oil pan we can put on it.
Okay,
And
thank you.
all right. So now that I'm here with everything we need to get started on Jimmy Dale's engine, we turn our attention to getting it fired up on the dyno. The little 434 took its first breath of air at about 3:24 in the afternoon. The engine sounded really good as we fired it up, but my day was about to take a turn for the worse in more ways than one. The first pull was extremely disappointing, and the engine almost sounded like it was blown up. But there was worse news yet to come. My youngest brother, Joe, has been battling brain tumors, cancer, and seizures for over 10 years. Unfortunately, the medications that Joe has to take to control his seizures destroys his liver, and hospital visits have been very frequent, especially over the last 2 years. With each stay, his medical condition has become more and more serious. Last week, Jeremy and I went in to see him at the hospital and shared videos of Dad disking the front field. It would be the last video that Joe ever watched. 2024 has been pretty tough on our family. First we lost Mom in July, and now Joe. And moving forward with our day-to-day lives can be pretty difficult as grief comes in waves. I was struggling a little bit on Friday night when we went down to Cincy Street Nights with the kids. Spending time with them and racing was a good distraction, and definitely helped keep my mind off what had been going on back at home. But unfortunately, we were about to find that we had some problems with the race cars as well. It's no secret that we've been struggling when we go racing. Although we're starting to make some progress with the Falcon, and Allison's Dart is usually trouble-free, Billy's Nova is showing signs of some serious problems. The engine has always seemed to smoke out the passenger side bank, and at first we thought maybe it was a problem with the oil return on that turbo. Whatever the problem is, it's getting worse. After Billy won second round, he was paired with Logan Duvall, who was struggling with some problems with his car as well. After going through the finish line sideways second round, Logan decided to park his car, which would have given Billy a bye run. All Billy would have had to do was stage the car under its own power. But when he went to fire the car, part of the crank trigger had fell off the car, and the bolts and the hardware were lost. This makes our second trip to Edgewater, where we've lost on a bye run due to the cars falling apart or nearly catching fire due to loose fittings. Billy had gone into Jegs and picked up a new crank trigger for parts. Once we had the car back up and running, it was time to start diagnosing the problem with the smoke out the passenger side bank. The first thing we decided to do was a compression test to see if we had any cylinders that were low on compression. Although the engine pumps a very low number, all the cylinders were within 20 psi. Next, we capped off the oil supply to the passenger side turbo to see if that would clear up the smoke coming out of that side of the engine. If in fact our problem is a seal leaking in the turbo, this would clear it up. But unfortunately that wasn't the case. Our problem is internal, and we're going to have to keep digging further to find it. The next morning, Billy, Jeremy, and Tanner pulled the intake manifold off the big block and found a possible smoking gun, or at least they thought. While Billy continues to dig deeper into the big block in his Nova, Tanner and I go into Jack's Wax to pick up Uncle Bob's Corvette. I think the plan at this point is that Billy's going to do a raffle on this Corvette once we get the car all cleaned up and a few things addressed that need to be taken care of. The biggest problem with the Corvette is the fact that it's been stored in Bob's machinery shed up at the farm. The car was in dire need of some attention cosmetically.
I don't think I saw underneath the hood before.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. Thankfully, Jared Miner, the CEO of Jack's Wax, gave us the green light to get this car cleaned up. The man with the plan.
What's happening?
The king of the wax palace.
The king of bling.
The king of bling. How you doing?
Good, man.
This thing looks great.
Pretty good.
Turned out really good.
Yeah, especially the engine.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get the floor stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Oh, my gosh. Bob's old Corvette looks good as new, and I couldn't be happier with the way this thing turned out. Thank you, J-Rod.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Uncle Bob says thank you, too.
No problem at all. Glad to do it. It's looking good. 25 years old.
Yeah. You ready, Steve-O?
Yeah.
Let's hit the road. After making sure that Jared knew how much we appreciate their help at Jack's Wax, Tanner hopped in the Corvette to drive it back to my shop, and I followed him back in the El Camino. Now that Bob's Corvette's all detailed inside and out and even under the hood, it's time to start the next phase of the Corvette project. I dropped Tanner off at my shop and then hopped in the Corvette to head north up through Granville to go see my friends up at the House of Pearls. The removable hardtop on Bob's Corvette has evidently become damaged at some point in its life, and instead of having the top fixed properly and painted, they've wrapped it. From 30 feet away, you don't notice it, but when you get right up close to the Corvette, the top just looks horrible. Now, since the weather has been so bad recently, nice days like this where we could take the top off the Corvette and drive it around have been few and far between. So I don't want to waste the opportunity to drop the top off up at the body shop, so that they can get the vinyl wrap removed off of it and see what exactly they need to do to fix the top, if in fact it's even repairable, because it's hard to tell what we're going to find once we pull the wrap off. Thankfully, the damage was minor and easily repairable, so after matching up the paint, I decided to take the Corvette up to Bob's, topless, so he could see the car for himself, what it looked like after Jack's Wax got done detailing it. What do you think of that, Uncle Bob?
That is a new car. That came right off the showroom floor.
I just dropped the top off over at House of Pearls for you.
Oh, thank you.
They're going to repaint the whole top and make it match the rest of the nice paint.
I'll make someone a nice ride.
It's going to be nice when it's done.
Yeah.
Bob and I exchanged some good news in that he had figured out what was wrong with Jimmy Dale's engine when we made that first pull on the dyno. After replacing Jimmy Dale's burn-up cap and rotor, Bob's been testing the engine with different carburetors and changing the cam timing. So the situation is this. We've been playing with cam timing, and we have found some horsepower in Jimmy Dale's 434. However, we tried it with my 950 ATM gas carburetor, and then we put your 1050 on it, and it picked up 10 horse. Or a little bit more than 10 horse.
20 horse.
20 horse. So I wonder what it would do with a Dominator on it.
Yeah.
Well, I happen to have a Dominator. Now, I personally have never tried to use a Dominator on a small block Chevy, but I've definitely heard of people having success doing it. And since Jimmy's 15-degree small block Chevy uses a 1050 Dominator, I had Tanner go ahead and pull it off before we pull the engine out of Magic, and I took the Dominator up to Bob's for further testing. But to get the day started off right, we're going to make a baseline pull with the 1050 gas carburetor that belongs to Bob before we bolt the 1050 Dominator on. So it sounds really good.
Yep.
What it makes 624?
Yeah, we made 628 yesterday.
Okay. The barometer's probably down a little bit today. I don't know. Yesterday we had really nice weather. Today it's kind of cloudy and
Yeah.
raining. So it's
So
pretty.
yesterday we made 627.73. We did 624.08. So that gives a baseline of what we're doing today.
Okay. So now we're going to try this Dominator on here and see what that does.
Yep.
Since it picked up power yesterday going from a 950 to a 1050,
Yep.
we're just going to see what happens when we stick a Dominator on it. Now, since Jimmy's intake manifold is a 4150 flange, we have to remove the 2-inch tall 4-hole spacer and replace it with this 4500 flange adapter, which unfortunately doesn't match up to the intake very well. Now, personally, this looks like a choke point to me, but I've heard of a lot of people doing this and having success with it, so we'll see. Lost a little bit.
Lost a little bit, but it needs cleaned up or tuned up a little.
You think it's a little rich? All right, so this thing's a little bit rich. I called Jimmy Dale and I asked him, I said, hey, is this thing a little rich on your other engine? He's like, yeah, a little rich, a little rich. He's like, but I don't like power valves. I know you're a power valve guy, but I don't like power valves because I tend to blow them out. So this thing doesn't have power valves in it, which is fine, whatever. But it is jetted a little rich. It had 104 ATM jets in it, which that's a 104 orifice. I've switched out the jets. I've taken 3,000ths out of each jet orifice. And so now it's on an 86 Holly jet, which is a 101 orifice. So we're going to fire this thing back up and try it again. After having the carburetor apart, we check for leaks and prepare to make another pull.
like it.
Now, Bob's initial testing between the 950 and his 1050 showed an increase of 20 horsepower between my smaller 950 and his much larger Venturi 1050. Now, according to our exhaust gas temperatures and reading the plugs, the carburetor seems to be rich, but when you take jet away, the engine loses power. So obviously, something isn't happy. We've always had good results with this trick flow intake, and it port matches very well with Jimmy's AFR 227 cylinder heads. Now, outside of the obvious choke point, the only other thing that I don't like is how the intake spacer doesn't line up with the top of the intake very well. So we decided to pull the intake off and port match it to the spacer. Bob first uses a Sharpie to mark the top of the intake and then goes to work on his downdraft porting station, using an air-powered high-speed drill and a carbide cutting tool to carefully remove the material needed to make the intake match the spacer. Once he was satisfied how the two meet up, we still have to do some work on the gasket. Here, Bob uses a ball peen hammer to fold the gasket over, making the excess gasket material easy to tear off and match perfectly. Finally, it was about time to call it a day. So Bob blew out all the metal shavings and put the intake manifold back in the hot tank to let it soak, and then he plans on a final cleaning in the morning before he reinstalls the intake on the engine in the dyno room. All right, guys, it is Wednesday. We're back up here at the machine shop. Just got off the phone with Jimmy Dale, and he's about to leave Texas to head this direction. Tanner got his engine pulled out of Magic yesterday. So for the most part, I think we're just about ready to put this new engine, or actually it's his old engine, it's his 23 degree 434. We're just about ready to put this engine back in the car once we get done dynoing it. Late breaking news on Billy's situation. He fired the Nova back up last night after fixing the intake gaskets, and it did appear that it was better, but it still smokes like a freight train. He's busy right now down at the shop getting ready to pull the engine out of the Nova, or maybe he's already got it out of the Nova. He's going to bring it up here to the machine shop. We're going to tear it down, go through the engine, and just check everything out and see what's going on with it. But we're just about ready to fire up Jimmy Dale's 434 back here. Sounds like Bob's trying to get oil pressure up in it. We ported that intake last night or yesterday afternoon, and Bob came in early this morning, got the intake put back on the engine, and let the silicone dry. And he's back here right now, and he's waiting to talk to me about something. We're back. Now, we're getting ready to make a pull on this thing. We fired it up, checked the timing. But it's got the small carburetor back on it. You surprised me a little bit there.
Well, I want to get a baseline, a new day, new baseline, make sure it's where it was. Always trying to recheck.
So we're going to get a baseline on it again with the ported intake with the small carburetor. I've got the timing set at 36, and I think that's where it made the power the other day. So let's go ahead and make an initial pull with the small carburetor on it again, just to see if anything's changed with what we did to the intake.
Right.
And we'll go from there, and then we'll swap the big carburetor back on.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right.
What was it? Some water splashing out of the drain out
Yeah,
there?
the bypass of the dyno.
Oh.
I stick a hose down in it. I had it pulled out because I was measuring water, so no big deal.
So 624 is what I saw on
That's
the screen.
what I saw.
That's exactly what it made yesterday.
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good. So now that we know for certain that the port work that we did yesterday hasn't made any difference in horsepower or torque with the small carburetor, we're now going to pull Bob's 4150 1050 carburetor off and swap out for the Dominator once again. Now obviously the testing with the smaller carburetor is being used with an HVH spacer, which in the past has always typically been good for 5 or 10 horsepower. But could that be the reason we're not making as much power with the Dominator? Well, we weren't sure, but port matching the spacer to the intake was an obvious no-brainer, given the fact that there was definitely some kind of an issue with atomization yesterday on the dyno. We know this engine will make almost 630 horsepower at 36 degrees of timing, and yet with the Dominator it seems to be burning fuel in the headers. But after pulling some jet out of the carburetor, it lost power. So obviously there's something going on that we've never experienced before. Well, we're learning something.
You don't like it.
It don't like it. It just doesn't like it for whatever reason. It just does not like it. All right, so we've got a little bit of a dilemma here that we feel like maybe I've gone the wrong way on the jetting, even though it sounds better and then it's cleaner when Bob throws the throttle to it with the smaller jets. It looks like on the graph that the EGTs kind of take off above 5,000. So what we've done is we've put the carburetor back exactly the way it came from ATM. We're going to make another pull on it and see what it does. And then if it picks up, we may try and make an air bleed change. And depending on what we see here, it just doesn't make sense that everything we do that we think is going to help it continues to hurt it. So let's check for leaks. We'll fire it back up. We're splitting hairs.
We are.
It just does not like it.
It does not like it.
What's crazy to me is that the Dominator has a much deeper tone to it when it's making the sweep. When you're making a pull, the floor seems like it rumbles a little harder, and
Building.
yeah, the whole building just seems like it rumbles harder, and you're thinking, my God, that thing's really making power. But with a little carburetor on it, it just sounds a little bit happier. And the dyno shows it just likes it more. It makes more power, it makes more torque with that little 1050 4150 carburetor. I talked to the guys down at ATM, and they're going to go ahead and build Jimmy a new 1050 4150 carburetor, just like the one we've got here for the dyno that they sent you, because that thing is a magic carburetor.
It is.
We've had that thing on everything from a 355 to a 540.
And it just runs.
And it,
You don't
yeah,
have to change anything, it just goes.
yeah, we haven't touched a thing on that. I don't think I've ever had the bowls off that carburetor. We put that thing on, and it seems like that carburetor makes more power on everything we ever put it on, and we never touch it.
And I usually, anything that's in here that I don't know anything about, to get the engine started and make sure we get the rings and stuff seated,
Yeah.
I use that carburetor. I had a 427 the other day, and the customer he was like, man, that thing's awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys, it is Thursday. Me and June Pup here are headed into Jigs. We're going to pick up some parts for Billy's small block that he wants to put in his C10. I need to pick up a few things for my 440, and I want to pick up this spacer. I ordered a spacer, an HVH tapered spacer that adapts a 4150 flange intake to a Dominator carburetor, because we've been running that 1050 4150 carburetor at Bob's with a 2-inch HVH spacer, and I know from past experiences that sometimes those spacers can make a pretty big difference in power. I just want to make sure that I'm giving the Dominator every chance to have a fair fight against that little carburetor. So we're going to go pick that stuff up. It's been a little wet and raining here last few days. My grass is starting to get out of control. Billy did manage to get that big block pulled out of his Nova last night. It's sitting on a cradle back at the shop. So as soon as I get back from Jigs, I'm going to run that big block up to Bob's, unload it, so Bob can get started tearing it down and find out why we keep getting oil in that passenger side bank, mostly number 6 cylinder for some reason. Now, I'm not going to lie, I was ready to give up on that Dominator carburetor last night when I left Bob's. But there was just something nagging at me that I needed to pick up one of these spacers and try it before I write the Dominator off. And since I needed to pick up some header flange adapters, some lifters, and some other parts for Billy, it's not like I was having to make a special trip just to pick up the spacer. I thanked Uncle Terry for helping me get everything lined up, and then June Pup and I headed back to my shop to pick up Billy's big block. We need to load it on the back of my dually, tie it down, and then Tanner and I are going to take it up to Bob's and start tearing it apart in between dyno pulls on Jimmy's 434. So it goes without saying, today is going to be a very busy day. Between pulling Billy's engine apart, making dyno pulls on Jimmy Dale's 434, tuning it, and trying to film everything at the same time was about to make for a hectic day. Thankfully, Billy was already at the machine shop when we pulled in, and he's going to be lending a hand to tear the engine down today as well. So that was a huge relief to me. That allowed me to focus mainly on Jimmy Dale's engine and just trying to film. Bob and I quickly installed the new HVH Dominator spacer and started getting the engine ready to make its first pull.
Well, we're letting this thing warm up. Bob's about ready to make a pull on it. He thinks it's better, just by the sound of it. We'll see. What do you think, Bob? What are your thoughts?
It sounds cleaner.
It does seem to sound cleaner when you rev it. Alright, so we put a couple degrees of timing in this thing. We're warming it up again. We're going to try it again. Alright, so what we did here was we called Doug down at ATM, and we were concerned with a little dip in our torque curve and our horsepower curve. And this is a 4-circuit Dominator, and he advised us to make a change to the intermediate air bleed, which we did. And although the horsepower did not increase, torque did. We had a dip in the torque curve and it fixed that. Let me show you. So you can see here, the green was the pull that we made prior. The horsepower up here is almost identical. They stayed almost the same. But the green is the last pull we made and the red is the new pull we made, and that's our torque curve. And see, we had this little slope right here that we were worried about. We're trying to get it out. That air bleed change, we richened up the intermediate and it made more torque down here. So that would be something that would definitely show a decrease in ET on the track.
Yeah, and also out here, you can see out here, this was the yellow line. Between the two, it picked up the 5 horsepower out here at the tail.
Now that the carburetor, the intake, and the spacer are all working well together, we can start to tune this thing for max power and add more timing.
Wow.
So look out here at the end. So the yellow was the old. I don't know if you can see that very well or not.
And you can see it doesn't
See,
drop off at the end.
I know, it keeps going. So we were out here, we were at the max at 7,000. We were at 628. So Jimmy wants to keep carrying this. Well, that is the best. That thing has ran, carrying the RPM from 63, 64
To 7,000.
to 7,000.
The next morning, Jimmy Dale showed up bright and early. The only problem is, he's not going to have a race car for the weekend.
The learner program.
I asked him, I was like, if you want to get your Mustang together, we can try to pull an all-nighter. He's like, no,
Oh,
I got
God.
to rewire the whole car and all this. He's
Rewire
like,
the
can we just
transfer.
drive a 55 in True Street? I'm like, I don't
Oh
care.
no. I laid down some rules to Jimmy about driving the 55 Chevy. and we discussed them at great length on the way to Bob's to pick up his engine. Because God knows when Jimmy gets to Jimmy Dalen, it's hard to tell what he's going to do from one minute to the next.
I forgot my sunglasses, so we got to turn around. He said, "No, wear my glasses." All right, say less, fam. I can't see with this thing on. All right, now that I look official as a whistle, I just drove 24 hours. I got to your house at like 6:30 this morning after dropping off that damn rally car.
And I had just gotten to sleep when you pulled in because I was up editing. I just fell asleep, and then the dog raising all kinds of hell. And then I see this creature that looks more like an alien creeping past my door. We didn't know what was going on.
I've been up for 24 hours, bro. You know that shit ain't easy. Next week we got Shady Side for the $50,000 King of the South.
Come on.
Come on. After Shady Side, then the following weekend is War in the Woods at Brown County. And then I go back home. I have 1 week off. We have 1 week off, and Modell's in a fishing tournament.
A fishing tournament?
Yeah, fishing names, the Hookers. So after Modell's fishing tournament, then we got H-Town Throwdown in Hartshorn, Oklahoma. And then after that, I don't even know if I'll be alive after that. Who knows what's going to happen after that? That's my next 4 weeks. After that, 4 weeks, no plans.
How many weeks do I have to survive with you here?
2.
Not consecutive though, right? I thought you were turning and burning and getting the hell out of here.
Evidently, since Jimmy's going to be here for 2 weeks, it's imperative that we get his Mustang up and running to keep him out of the 55 or any of the other cars at our shop. Jimmy tends to get a little bit wild in the winner's circle, and as much as I'd like to see him win in the 55, I don't want to see him standing on it or popping beer cans open all over the paint. So hopefully we can keep him under control and get his car back together as quickly as humanly possible while trying to get our own projects off the ground as well. Bob's just about got my 440 done and starting to make some progress on diagnosing Billy's big block problems as well.
I really appreciate how much effort y'all put into my motor this week.
We worked our freaking dinguses off trying to get this thing to make the power that you wanted where you wanted it to make it.
Hey, I wasn't like, I want this number.
Oh yeah, you were riding us like Seabiscuit.
No, I was not. That's not true. I never would do that.
Jimmy was pretty happy with the overall results based on where we started and what we got to once we were done tuning.
So, we went from that, is what I had laying in here.
45 horsepower. 45. Y'all said 20 horsepower. But
Well, when we first put it on.
We first put it on, and then we kept tuning the carburetor to keep making it better.
551.
Well,
I'm looking at peak discrepancies of
Well,
where it
I mean,
made
but
this. You're only looking at peak horsepower.
well, no, I'm looking at what I changed on this.
Then
To
you went from
this.
that to
That
this.
is what I added, and then we
Super
kept getting.
Sucker.
Yeah,
It's got a great name. It does.
it does.
And it's made in America. Made in America, Super Sucker.
I honestly, when I picked that up at Jegs, I thought this is going to be the final straw. We're going to lose another 20 horsepower when we put this thing on. I'm going to be totally upset.
You're like-
Bob's going to be depressed.
Like, Terry, give me that snake oil out of that. I think a lot of us all thought this could be a snake oil deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
thought it
we've
would
used
help
them
it,
before.
I mean, I didn't know whether it would help, but it should make it a lot worse.
John.
It works, dude.
Will you show them this dip
Well,
right
it's-
here? Look, you see the dip?
I see the dip.
Look at the
It
purple
falls
line.
off.
No dip.
Yeah.
Minimal dip.
Minimal dip.
Minimal.
That's a big difference. Thank
That's a
you
big
guys so
difference.
much. I love you both. Really happy about it.
We are too. I mean, it was the most exciting, I think, in educational dyno that we've done.
Bob called me 2 beers deep last night. Bob calls me. He's like, I've been home 15 minutes. I've had 2 beers and I had a great week.
All right, we're back. It's been a long time since I put up a video.
Bit of a stretch.
a bit of a stretch, a little bit of a struggle. But thankfully, Jimmy Dale's here to cheer me up.
And he has.
No pressure.
All of us.
No pressure.
He was even entertaining Wyatt.
You're larger than life.
Thank you.
For a skinny guy.
Yeah.
So we went racing this weekend. We went down to West Virginia, and Jimmy got to drive the 55. You didn't drive it like a dune buggy. You didn't corn nut in it, and you didn't stand on top of it.
Yeah, we call it nutting. When you eat corn nuts and something, you call it nutting. Get it? Get it? Nutting?
I didn't want him nutting in the car.
Yeah, no nutting in the car.
Yeah. So,
I still gave it some whoppers, but you know.
yeah, well, that was one of the rules, but
He broke that one.
he broke it.
America.
Yeah, it's for
For
America.
America loves whoppers. Y'all hit the comments. Let them know. Whompers are good.
So I didn't film any of that for my channel. That's going to be on Jimmy Dale's channel and the kids' channel. Those videos will be coming out here pretty soon. But we've had a great time. Thank you for coming up and hanging out with me, cheering me up. Been a rough week for me after losing my brother. And your dyno session got off to a really rough start because your burn up distributor cap and rotor, that happened. I got the news that Joe passed away, and I'm like, I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving. Because I knew you were coming and you're ready to get this engine in the car. And I just felt like I was under a lot of pressure. And then when Joe passed away, I was like, God.
You and me are always talking about, you know, this life that we both live, which is just crazy unscripted. It's really unscripted. Nobody had planned, okay, Joe's going to pass away. Then Jimmy's going to come the next week. He's going to cheer me up a little bit. Then it's going to be Vicky and old man's 30th anniversary.
Oh, you had to bring that up. That's tomorrow.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. 30 years
Can't
married.
believe you made it.
Yeah, we made it. Barely.
Still alive.
Still alive.
Yeah.
So if you guys would like the opportunity to come hang out here, and I don't know if Jimmy Dale will be here when whoever wins comes, you know, that's always a possibility, but it's also a non-possibility because trying to keep Jimmy on track is like trying to herd squirrels. Yeah. It's very difficult.
And I'm like Buzz Lightyear right now. I'm going broke in style. So the thought that I'll be back out here anytime soon, it may be. I don't know.
Maybe a bit.
We don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know. I said in my video, or in this video, it says, after the next 4 weeks, I have no plans. No idea what I'm doing. 4 weeks from now, no clue.
We have no idea what Jimmy's going to be doing. But so the dyno thing went really well. And, you know, we're not experts, especially you, but.
I didn't put no input. I was just like,
no,
yep.
I'm just teasing. Yep. But look, like me and Bob we don't claim to be experts. We're learning as we go, and just sharing the information with the viewers, right? I'm not claiming to be some carburetor expert. I'm not claiming to be an engine tuning expert. None of that. I'm trying to learn, and I'm just sharing my experiences as we go. So if there's people out there that already knew that spacer was going to do this, or that was going to do that, or the intake wasn't going to make any difference.
Hey, what did I call it?
Good
I called
for you.
It snake oil.
Yeah.
I said, oh, so you got some snake oil down at Jegs. You're going to think that's going to work.
Dude, I really
oil.
thought when I picked up that spacer, it's going to lose another 20 horse. Bob's going to be upset. I'm going to be upset. The video is going to suck. Or I'm going to get flamed in the freaking comments for being an idiot, which we are. But it worked out, and we made a really good improvement in that engine on the dyno. So I think it's in pretty good shape to put it in the car, which it's now in the car. It's not quite running yet. We're waiting on Uncle Terry to bring gaskets. Be running tonight.
Yeah.
Wait, it will?
Yeah.
Oh.
We're that close?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like
Yeah.
header gaskets away from running it.
Uncle Terry's bringing header gaskets on his way home.
Wait, you want me to just RTV it and crack it off right now for the end of the video?
Or just not even put the headers on it, just fire it
Yeah,
up.
let's just fire it up how it sits. That was great. No.
So the next video will probably be a little bit of Jimmy Dale's car going up the road, whatever. You know, I don't know what we're going to do. None of this is planned or scripted. We have no idea what's coming, but
we sort of have to go make a little trip to pick up a hood.
Well, I was getting to that.
Oh.
So I have a box that was delivered today. It's a brand new front bumper cover for my Monte Carlo. It's got like an Outlaw, what do you call that, Jimmy?
X275.
An
LDR.
LDR bumper.
No. It's an aftermarket fiberglass front bumper with a low hanging balance. That's all
it's got a lower valance on it.
Yeah, air dam, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So that showed up, and I haven't unboxed it yet. Maybe we'll show that in the next video. But that's for the Monte Carlo, and I've got a brand new hood that's finished. It's been done. It's waiting on me to pick it up in Chicago at Glass Tech for my Monte Carlo.
Frosty rubbed off on it.
Frosty, yeah. I had to order a hood like Frosty for my 78.
Aren't those things that just arrived, isn't that what always gets destroyed when you load it on the trailer?
That's when
it's on the trailer because this is a street car.
Well, okay, so that's what happens when Billy loads cars on trailers, not when I load cars on trailers. So there's that. But anyway, it is going to be a street car. That's going to be my sick week car. Yeah. So once I get my hood picked up, and the valance is already here, the front bumper, I'm taking the car up to House of Pearls. They're going to mount the hood, mount the front bumper cover, and paint them, and have it ready to head north up to Bipolar. Once we get the engine and transmission, the drivetrain all swapped into it. But yeah. So
it's gonna roll into Bipolar looking sick.
Yeah, it's gonna roll into Bipolar looking sick. Yeah, because he wants it to look nice, because he's showcasing
the 440 for it.
Huh? It's
Motor's
done.
Almost done.
Yeah, it's done. Bob's got it finished. It's up to the machine shop, ready to go on the dyno.
So you'll see some dyno of that.
Yeah, and my new carburetor's here for it. My blow-through carburetor for it. It's up here. Tommy's new carburetor's here for his S10 if we ever get time to work on it. So there's a lot of stuff coming up here in the next few weeks. And make sure that if you haven't already entered to win a brand new ATM carburetor by buying any of this stuff off the website.
Anything on any order now through the end of the, well, stop. You'll cut that.
No, I won't. I'm not cutting nothing.
Any order till the end of the month gets you a chance to win.
Yeah. We're taking orders till the end of the month for chances to win a brand new ATM carburetor and to come out here and hang out with us.
And you might install it.
I mean, if you win a carburetor and you need it installed on the car and they live close enough, they can bring the car, we'll install it, I'll help them tune it in, get the car dialed in, and we may end up digging drain tile. I might need a little bit of help cleaning gutters.
You may end up breaking down boxes for Miss Vicky.
I know. Jimmy said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I was like, yeah. Can you unload all the event merch, break down all those boxes? I didn't even work.
No big deal.
And then he serenaded Wyatt for a while until he fell asleep.
Yeah, you'll see all that in the next video on SRC.
The only person that would listen to me play is a 6-month-old baby. So, it's all right.
So, and just remember that all this stuff is pre-order, so you're not going to get it the same week. It's going to take 3 to 4 weeks.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.